Hello, everyone. Welcome to Canucks This Week. I'm Paul Chapman. This is Patrick Johnston. I don't normally do a proper introduction. Realize I should. We thank you for listening, watching. Go to theprovince.com and sign up for our newsletter, Canuck Report. You will get all the content, including these videos, delivered to you if you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else. Leave some comments. We will get back to you on pretty much everything you answer, as long as you're respectful. But we do appreciate you watching us. So, Patrick, when we talk every week about the Canucks, I like to try and lead you in a different direction. But this team is just... the same themes are there all the time. And I think if you go back to the start of the week, they are terrible at home against one of the NHL's worst teams. And then Elliot Friedman says they're open for business. They want to get younger. You talk to Jim Rutherford. That story goes nuts. Everyone picks it up and it's burn it all down. Right? We put polls on our stories. 71%, and this is not scientific, 71% of the people who answered our poll, what should they do with Quinn Hughes? 71% of the people who responded to the poll said, get rid of him now. Get the most, start your rebuild now, just do it, thinking you can't get him. Then they go to Anaheim. Yeah, no, and again, it's not scientific, right? There are restrictors on there, so it's not the same person voting over and over again, but still, it shows kind of where the fan base is. Then they go out and they play Anaheim, top team in the Pacific. Maybe a bit of a surprise, but still. And much like they have, even though they got a result, and they haven't, the Lightning, the Avalanche, the Jet, against good teams, this team still shows a fight. So crystallize for me, I used the cliche on one of our stories this morning. Just when you think you're out, they bring you back in. I mean, you have to admire it, but does it epitomize where this team is stuck right now?
By the way, I guess shout out to the Rewatchables, Bill Simmons' podcast, where they discussed Al Pacino as being the GOAT of gifts because they bring you back in, and there's the. But anyway.
It's true. When people are ready to say, all right, this team is at the whole U.S. Thanksgiving mark or the quarter mark, whatever you want to say, and they go out and they beat the Ducks. And it does make me think, under the right conditions, you get in the playoffs, and Demko's back, and they get those contributors. What is this team?
Well, this team is a team that has some interesting parts to it. There's a squint of a chance where this team becomes a playoff team. It's pretty tough. There's still a team without a second line center. That's the bottom line here, and a pretty chaotic defensive situation. Somehow haven't given up the most goals in the NHL. That title, as discussed in the national video I do with Steve Simmons, not Bill Simmons. The Edmonton Oilers have given up the most goals, so at least the Canucks don't have that crown. They're not listen, they've been scoring goals all year. This is not not even necessarily a Quinn Hughes or Elias Petterson story. Both those guys have scored. That's great. The whole team's scored. Linus Karlsson, 4 goals, not playing a ton, but making his mark. Max Sasson, again, another goal. It's a team that has done good things when they are in the offensive zone. The problem is, as Adam Foote said last week, and he and I had a pretty good discussion after his media session. I can't even remember what day it was. Was it Friday? Was it Thursday? Anyway, at some point last week, he and I had a really good discussion. And I said, just sort of the idea of, you talk about once we're out of the zone, you're right, things are going well. I know you weren't trying. I said to him, I know you're not kind of dump on your defensive team, but that's the truth, isn't it? And he goes, no, listen, we have to get better. We're learning. We've changed. It's funny. He argued the other day that nothing's really changed. No, even you've kind of said things have changed. The way they're playing more on reads. It's a less Rick Tocchet was very structured, very disciplined. If the puck's here, you need to be there, and that guy needs to be over there. And, as I point around on a video that most people aren't probably necessarily, I guess people are watching this video. So I'm used to being on a podcast where they're only listening. And so there's a structure to it. Whereas Adam Foote is very much just keep, make the smart decision, make the smart decision, make the smart decision. And they have this cascade effect where one guy makes a poor decision and everything goes wrong. And that has been a huge problem. Some of that is, some of that's down to youth and inexperience, and some of that's just down to maybe being old, and some of that's just down to not being very good. And, as Rutherford himself admitted to me this week, They are in a different place than they were when this team was built with JT Miller and Elias Petterson as their main centers. They just are. They would like to get back to that direction, but right now they need to get younger. They need to find younger players. So the truth remains that this team is not in a playoff position. Yeah, they've had some impressive wins. There is no doubt about it. They've beaten some very good teams. Is Anaheim going to finish the year in first place in the division? I don't think so. I just think fundamentally in the end, I think Vegas is better. I think LA is better. Edmonton should be better, but they sure have dug themselves another big hole to climb out of.
And continuing to dig, right? Like that's what Anaheim, I look at. But
Anaheim's come a long way. Like there's a lot of fun stuff. It's an interesting team, and as I wrote for my post-game Canucks coffee on Thursday morning, like this is kind of the team that Canucks would like to quickly become. Because there's a group of veterans on that team, and there's a group of young guys, and the young guys are leading the charge, and the veterans are supporting.
But Patrick, how did they get the young guys?
Well, exactly. And so that's what Jim Rutherford was saying. Like, that's kind of where they're at. That's what this team is. They need to move on from, like, literally Sherwood, Kane, Forbort, Bluger, right? Those are the 4 unrestricted free agents that Jim Rutherford cited to me this week. All are guys that move at the deadline, and if you look at what guys get moved for, you do see interesting things move. You're not going to get a home run, amazing prospect for any of those guys, but you might get somebody interesting who helps you fill it around the edges, who maybe turns into your second line center. Maybe that's what you're looking for, a guy who's a younger guy who could become your second line center and isn't a second line center right now. You know, like that's kind of where they have to go, and that's where it all comes back. And that's why I asked him about Quinn Hughes. I said, listen, you know, given all this, is this the kind of plan you've talked to Quinn Hughes? And we all, I think, by now have seen Rutherford's very careful answer to that question. So this is a team that is in transition. Is it rebuilding? Not exactly. Is it trying to be something different? Yes. Will they get there? Well, we'll see.
When you examine the roster a little bit, I mean, you've talked about Quinn Hughes, and there's so much discussion around him, and you know whether you would trade him or not. I don't think he's worth. I saw the national debate after the your story came out. All the national media jumps on like, oh, who's going to get Quinn Hughes? And the idea, everyone seems to. It's so lazy, to be honest with you. Everyone seems to be like, oh, he's going to New Jersey to play with his brothers. But the argument that's being made right now is like, well, you get him for 2 playoff runs. You could, and of course, it comes back to the Leafs. The Leafs could rent him for 2 playoff runs, right? So, I mean, you're not going to move him unless you get like stratospheric value. Like this is an elite player. You cannot replace him. Even if you got a top 4 pick in the draft, you cannot replace him. You don't know. The Canucks really hit on something they haven't had in their 55 years before. So let's kind of put that aside. Injuries, missed a few games. He still leads the team in points. Like he's still the one guy who you can count on. And in a game like that against Anaheim makes you think that, you know, if he's healthy in the playoffs, he can, and then Demko's healthy in the playoffs, you can get there. So I get it. The roster needs to be shuffled. I mean, aside from Sherwood, I don't know that you would get much for any of the other guys that you listed that are restricted. And I do look at this, at this team and I go, yeah, okay, they have to get younger, but maybe points and goal scoring, which we've been lamenting for years, aren't the real issue behind this team, as you've talked about. It's been their goals against. Well, they've used 4 different goalies, and all of them have looked good at some point. Defensively,
well, but, you know, yeah.
Well, I know, but look, that's an emergency type situation, right? Like, yeah,
sure, for sure.
But if I look 2 guys in particular, the other 2 Petterssons on defense, do they need more out of those guys? Because they're not exactly older restricted free agents that you're going to get rid of. No, but when I think of defensive problems, those are 2 guys that you thought would be your bedrock. And no one wants to point fingers at young players, but you can say you're too old. I just look at maybe development's the issue with some of these guys.
Well, I mean, Elias Petterson, let's be clear. I mean, he was, people may have wanted to believe that he was going to be some big, exciting, you know, top pairing defenseman. But the truth is, he's a guy that always panned out as like a number 6, number 7. And that's how he is right now. And he has not had a very good season. Let's absolutely be clear. You know, he played pretty well last spring in a new role, or, you know, in a NHL role for the first time. And now he kind of had a job. I mean, I don't think the job was handed to him. I know Adam Foote was a little bit anxious, sort of saying, in terms of looking at how a young defenseman needs to develop and wanting to make sure that, he was helped. He was grounded a little bit, because there were going to be some failings, and he didn't want him to fall over and go, oh my goodness, I don't know how to play this game. So you do wonder how he's doing mentally right now. He's a nice kid, and I talk to him fairly often. But no, he's not having a very good season. In fact, if you were to pick the young defenseman who is having a pretty good season, it's actually surprisingly Tom Willander, who I think we all thought in training camp was a long way off. He did not have a very good camp. But we are seeing in this player the smarts that the Canucks liked from him in his draft year. Like, he stood out to them as a player who would be able to sort of quickly understand the task at hand. Now, he hasn't been perfect. I didn't think he was very good against Anaheim. He got caved in a lot. He still came away with 2 assists, which is fantastic for him. But the truth is, on the overall, his game has been pretty good. His game wasn't very good last night. But Elias Petterson has really, really struggled. And you're right to mention Marcus Pettersson, too, who is looked to by this team to be steady, composed, competent, not a guy you hear about, not a guy you think about. You might think about, oh, that's a nice another little play from him. He's good at moving the puck up the ice. But mostly you're just like, okay, another zone entry denied, another zone exit successfully completed. And we've been seeing a little too much chaos in this game. Some of that might be because he's been playing with the clear-off giraffe himself, Tyler Myers, a lot. And Tyler Myers has struggled in this new system, whether it's because of age or just because truly he's just never been a truly good read, quote-unquote, defenseman. Yeah. But either way, Pettersson's the number 3 guy on the step chart, and he just hasn't been good enough. And the team need more out of him, no matter what happens, whether they do somehow find their way back into the playoff chase, or even just as they develop towards the future. I mean, he is going to be here long term. He's a player that management believes in. And I think they were right to. I think that the choice to re-sign him was the right choice. He is a smart, competent, top-end defenseman. He's been a very good player. There's a reason why he played all those years in Pittsburgh with the likes of Letang and Carlson, like guys who can really wheel and deal. And it's not just that he was sort of that defensive rock. He was also just able to keep up. He played at the same pace. He played the same mentality with those guys. So, that is what they need from him. They need him to continue to raise up, and he just hasn't been that so far.
Just going to throw a few names at you, like your impression of where they are and where they're going. And by all means, be critical, be positive. Tell me if you think they should be moved, or if it's a guy they can build on, or what throughout the rest of the season you see their role is. Because there's a lot of guys here that we don't talk. We tend to talk about the same guys every week for various reasons. But let's start with Brock Boeser. 4th in team scoring, 15 points. I always look at Boeser. In the past, he's been more of a streaky guy. You don't notice him as much, and then all of a sudden he goes on a tear and he'll win you a couple of games.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the low points, but he hasn't had the high points either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as you said, Boeser is a guy that in the end of the season you stand up, you look, well, that's a pretty good scoring record. And, there have been times when we said he deserved more goals. Obviously, he has the 40-goal season on his record. But yeah, as we record this on Thursday, looking ahead at Friday's matinee game against San Jose and then Saturday in L.A., he hasn't scored in 6 games. Right, he has 3 assists in that time, which is nice. And the good news is he's been shooting. Right, in the last 3 games against Dallas, Calgary, and Anaheim, he has 9 shots, which is great. 3 shots a game. He set up the Garland goal. He was like many Canucks I thought against the Ducks. A lot of it they were chasing the game. A lot of them. I mean, they took the early lead, but even when they were leading, it felt like they were chasing, getting massively outshot, struggling to retain possession. He was one of many who I thought was kind of, I'm not so sure he's having a great game. And yet he got involved, especially in the 3rd period, and made a difference. And he's kind of become that kind of player, a guy who, clearly we know he's a smart player. He understands the game. He's learned a lot about his own sort of shortcomings as a player, and has developed into quite a handy two-way player. He's never going to be a great skater, and I know some people are not impressed with him because of his poor skating and maybe would like to move on from him. But in terms of sort of culture and solid dude and guy you want on your team, I mean, yeah, he's still there. The problem is, as you said, he kind of, he opened the season on a tear, 3 goals in 4 games, and he this is the biggest slump of the season for him, though, right? Like, he's never gone more than 3 games this season without scoring. Now he's gone 6. So, it really comes back to him needing to find a way to get some goals, whether it's on the power play. I mean, the power play has shifted away from him a little bit, even though he's still on the first unit. Jake DeBrusk, look at Jake DeBrusk. He's found a way there. He's got to find a way to make himself a little bit more relevant in terms of the scoring. I'm not so concerned with him in terms of the 5-on-5 game. He's had a couple. I mean, he's had a couple weak performances here overall. So yeah, I mean, it's always easy. It's an easy one to point. You find a veteran. Yeah, he needs to be better, and Brock Boeser right now needs to be better.
Well, what about DeBrusk? You mentioned him. He's tied with Boeser, second behind Sherwood of all people in goals scored. 8. Not when you extrapolate that over the season, that's a pretty good return for him.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's a guy that's sort of notoriously been a slow starter, right? I mean, we saw that last year. I can't remember, was it 15 games or something? I can't remember what it was. But, I mean, a guy who played really well on that last road trip, right? Where they, as well as they played, they still only got, half the points against some tough teams. But nonetheless, a guy that found his way. Had 1 goal in his first 8 games and 2 goals in his first 13, but he's really been on fire ever since. And, a little bit of a guy like last night, like I sort of said, I mean, him and Vander Kane have had better games, right? Like, they started well, they probably finished well. Elias Petterson is their center. Like, they had some chances. Bury one of those. I mean, Kane scored on the power play. You bury one of those goals, you're talking a different story. It's funny. Like, I mean, there's more to hockey than just scoring, but when you're paid to score, that is what we focus on. And like, all 3, that whole line, like, they've had some pretty good games this year. I mean, I know Vander Kane hasn't exactly blown the roof off the season. He's got just 3 goals, or I guess he's got 4 goals now, but like, he's played kind of what you expected, which is that rambunctious style, been played with physicality. He's also had a lot of moments where you kind of wondered where his head's at and how focused he is. But DeBrusk, he comes in and certainly on the power play, like, he's around the net. That's what he wants to be. He's pretty good at it. Ironically, we just talked about Brock Boeser. Brock Boeser's outstanding in front of the net, although he hates being there. He knows where the goals are, like, in terms of tips and stuff. He loves shooting. He's not a big guy tip, but he's an outstanding tipper of the puck. DeBrusk really good at that too. I mean, listen, again, you've already kind of said it. Like, even in spite of all this, all the criticism, they're still scoring, right? Like, these guys are putting the puck in the net. So that's the hard thing. Like, is it a question of sort of the sum being more than the whole, they're a funny team right now, and one of the reasons is because they're getting performances, but they're also not getting enough of them, if that makes sense.
So this is where I find this team defies logic a little bit, where you say you can look at the Calgary game and you look at the Anaheim game. And I don't mean to just talk about Anaheim in isolation. I mean, like, they have generally competed even against the best teams in the NHL.
Right.
So you look at that and then you'll go, we'll focus on the goals, right? Like, people are saying, well, maybe it's not an $11 million player, but actually Elias Pettersson's been pretty good. He's contributed offensively, not as much, but defensively he's been great. So, people are now touting him as a potential Selke finalist. And then we talk about the need to have a second line center. But then when you strip it down and you look at it and you go, oh, well, actually Boeser's not bad in terms of his offensive production, and DeBrusk isn't bad, and Pettersson's been, like, it doesn't add up. When you look at this team and go, they need to be better defensively. But all the evidence sort of shows, like, it's almost like a game to game. There's something else that's a disconnect. There's no doubt it's been a bit better lately, but the penalty kill has been an issue. Special teams is an issue, right? When they had the run and they played the Oilers in the playoffs, yes, they ultimately got done in by the Oilers power play, but that team had been built on this great power play themselves, where Miller had his moments, Pettersson had his moments, Hughes running the show. So I know that there's a coaching element there, but ultimately this team to me seems it's all over the place, and that's why I don't know where to focus when you go, like, okay, how do you fix it? Because they don't seem like they're a million miles away, but they don't seem like they're close.
Yeah, and Yeah, I totally agree with that assessment. Like we know what they need. We know what they need to be. It's hard to see how exactly they get there. Although you can see the kind of blueprint of it, right? Like you can see that a trade, like the sort of trades that Jim Rutherford is proposing. Like I said, all those guys can get you players, or they can get you prospects, or they can get you picks. The fact that Rutherford went and said, yes, we would be willing to take draft picks is a big deal. Because to this point, what's the term always been, whether it's been Patrick Alvin or Jim Benning, what do they like to do? They like to make what kind of trade, Paul? Do you remember? Can you fill in the blank? A blank trade. A hockey trade. Yeah. Right? And now, and that's always meant I want to get a player to put on my team, right? Kind of that old school. Again, Steve Simmons and I were talking about this. The old school kind of deal. I'm not so sure about this guy. You have a couple guys over there that I'm kind of interested in. Why don't I send you this guy and you send me those guys and we'll see our team shake out. You know, like you don't get those kinds of deals as much anymore because of the salary cap. Like that has sort of forced a constriction. Now, right now, we're looking at a expanding cap. Most teams aren't at the limit. Most teams do have cap space to work with. So we may find ourselves in a bit of a I don't even know what the term would be, not false dawn, but a bubble. A bubble. People love bubbles these days, right? We're talking about it. We're going to see a bit of a trade bubble, I think might happen. Like we might actually see some movement because teams can be, okay, I can take that guy on and I don't have to do any shenanigans. And also I am also not allowed to do double retention and whatever. I can just get that guy and I can get that guy and here you go. So it is possible that out of all of this, that this is the sequence. That the fact that Rutherford has gone and said, and I put it to him and said, you know, Jim, you are known as a guy that likes to get ahead of the market, right? You've often said this. Why wait when I can just do it right now? And at a certain level, you're flipping this around to everyone else. Say, hey, guys, why wait? You can work with me right now. And he agreed. And that's where they're at right now, is that this is a situation where they can potentially, as you said, it's not clear how they get there, but they're trying to say, we think it's this way. We'll see how it plays out.
Definitely need to hit on a couple of those moves, though.
Yes.
Tell us what you know about the health of this team. They got some injured players ready to come back. How much do you think that's going to help? Certainly, obviously, Demko is a big one, but some of the other guys in terms of the depth.
I think so. Just to be clear, as we speak on Thursday, so on Wednesday after the game, Adam Foote said that Demko and Höglander would essentially join the trip in LA. Now, I've sort of done some sleuthing, and I think the Canucks are having like their rookie dinner. There's every year, at some point in the season, they kind of have a team get together, and the rookies have to basically buy every dinner. It's a bit of a bonding thing. Canucks are in LA starting Friday evening. Obviously, they have a game Saturday, so they're not going on Friday evening. However, they're staying. 1, they're staying in Santa Monica. 2, they're taking Sunday off. And 3, they're practicing Monday in El Segundo, which is the Kings practice facility. So what we're seeing here is that, Demko and Höglander are going to join the team to practice. Well, okay, they're playing a midday game on Friday in San Jose. Maybe they'll have an optional skate. Usually on back-to-backs, you don't skate the morning of the second game, but maybe they'll have an optional skate on Saturday morning at is it crypto.com arena? I've lost track. Anyway, whatever the old Staples Center is called. Maybe they'll have a skate there, but really what they're going to do is they're going to have Sunday off, then they will practice, and so it sounds like we'll see at least some of Demko and some amount of Höglander at practice. Obviously, Höglander's there to be a winger. He's a depth guy, but he's not a guy that's going to fix them defensively. But yeah, Demko, he's the meal ticket. Been out for a couple weeks now with what we think is a groin injury, and he will be working his way back. The reality is that they go to Denver on Tuesday, come home Wednesday, we think. And then, they have a Friday, Saturday. So they'll practice like Thursday. So maybe Demko gets another practice on Thursday. Like he's not playing. Like I have a really hard time imagining he'll be playing at all next weekend. I think it's more the week after. You're starting to look like something. I think like there's a game against New Jersey. I think on the 15th. Something like that.
So why would he join the team on the road trip then?
Well,
you're home for 4.
partly, Paul, because practice time is so limited now. Like because they've been playing so much, it's as much as anything about what are our opportunities to have a proper like skate with other guys. So whether and Adam Foote has recognized his opportunities to actually have his team work together, prepare for games, and help the goalies as much as anything. There's not a lot of them. So that's what they have to do, and I think that's literally what it is. I mean, it's also, like I said, there's a bit of a team event element to this. It's a team bonding. He is obviously an important part of the leadership group, so that's the other thing. I mean, it was the way it was explained was kind of funny. Why didn't you just bring him with you? I mean, like, I don't know, but that's how they're playing it out. Kevin Lankinen may also join. He stayed home for sort of a personal reason. I'm told everything's fine. But yeah, he should be able to join. He sounds like he might be able to join this trip if he can play. Like, they have these back-to-backs. I would be surprised if he's available to play in one of those. And we may see Yuri Patera again, but maybe he'll be there. I don't know. We'll see.
So in the 3 games left on this trip, how many do you think they're going to win?
So what are we talking?
Sharks, Kings, Avs. Yeah.
Well, I think they're going to lose in Denver. I think that's just a given. Denver's playing. The Avalanche are playing so well, altitude, all that. I think that they will. The Sharks, of course, have been surprising. I'm still not told. I mean, Macklin Celebrini is a fantastic player and is in Olympic consideration for good reason. But the Canucks have one of those guys of their own. His name's Quinn Hughes. And then maybe even Elias Petterson, who obviously is in the mix for Sweden and playing pretty well. I think the way Pettersson's playing, it's going to be a difficult choice, especially with his two-way play for his for Swedish coach Sam Hallam not to, and the selection committee they have there to not pick him. So anyway, I think they'll beat the Sharks. I think they'll lose to the Kings. I think they'll lose the Avalanche. So 1-2. Okay. So there you go.
I think they're going to go 2-1. I think they sweep California and lose to the Avs. I did want to ask you before we wrap up. I've highlighted in our Canucks live file wonderful piece by Shayna Goldman on Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah. Shayna's great.
Yeah. She is a really good reporter. If you don't have subscription, well worth it. Just along the lines of, we pay attention a little more here because he's a local kid. Bedard got more hype. He's still a first overall pick, but I think people had projected Bedard to be the better player. Not that, you've written about this, we've talked about it, that Bedard's having a really an awakening this season. But there's everything I read about Macklin Celebrini, including from Draymond Green, who of course knows him because of Macklin's dad, Rick, who has the job as the head physio.
Good friends with Ben Kuzma.
Yeah. I've known Rick for a while too. Really, really solid guy. And I remember having a great conversation with him about 10 years ago about why Macklin had taken to hockey versus soccer, because Rick famously was a soccer guy, played it with the 86ers. But getting off track. Everyone talking about how great Macklin Celebrini is, not just on the ice, but that he has it. Comparisons to Sidney Crosby. Apparently Crosby loves him. Nathan McKinnon loves him. And Draymond Green going on, comparing him to LeBron in this piece, in that as an 18-year-old, you knew as an 18-year-old, and nice, people just don't have a bad word to say about this guy. I know it's always different. U.S. Thanksgiving, 1:00 game. But what a great story. I mean, and I grew up as a Canucks fan, lifelong Canucks fan.
Yeah. Sorry, what?
Just like what a great story Macklin Celebrini is, and wouldn't it be great if one of these guys we talked forever, Sakic, Korea, why the great local players from here never seem to end up on the Canucks, even going back to Ray Ferraro, right? Like Ray always wanted to play for the Canucks. They've never gone after the local guy. I know that this is a first overall pick, but I'm just saying, like,
it would be fun.
To read such great praise about a local kid is wild.
Yeah, it is. And it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. One day, maybe. I don't know.
They got his brother. They got Quinn Hughes wants to play with his brothers. Why doesn't Macklin run out his contract and come play with his brother?
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Exactly.
But it's always makes those matchups interesting. I'm looking forward to watching that game against the Sharks while I'm working, of course, much like I got football there now. Yes, and of course, Christmas is coming. Don't forget to get your copy of Gino, The Fighting Spirit of Gino Odjick, book Patrick wrote with Peter Leach. Official launch last week, but it's been for sale for a while. Maybe if you respond to this video, Patrick might even sign it.
It can be done.
Yeah.
Find me. All right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week. Again, sign up to the Canuck Report at theprovince.com, vancouversun.com, and you'll get all our Canuck content delivered to you, including Jim Rutherford's always shocking comments from Patrick.